I'll start this video not with myself, but with a question. What does X mean? The solution of the equation. Roman 10. Adult content? Or maybe radioactive people. Think bigger. For millions of people, X means a dream. It's a mark on the map and a way to solve all their problems and satisfy their thirst for adventure. A spot where the treasure is hidden. Except the books lie to you. Sort of. The pirates didn't bury any gold and neither drew any maps with crosses on them. The roots of this myth stem from the story of one pirate, William Kidd. Captain William Kidd. After his arrest, the authorities indeed unearthed a pirate stash on Gardiner's Island near New York City, but it contained only a minor part of the loot. Kidd offered the governor a deal. All the rest of the treasure in exchange for freedom. It was an excellent bargain, but it didn't work out. Yep. The reporters spread rumors about Kidd's untold fortune, though no one ever found it. However, Robert Stevenson found inspiration and wrote the novel Treasure Island, depicting such a canonical map with crosses, which only strengthened the myth. In fact, pirates had absolutely no reason to hide the gold for two reasons. First, people back then valued cloth, spices, hard alcoholic beverages, but not yellow metal. Secondly, pirates didn't live long, up to 30 or 35 years. Because it was a dangerous profession, they were hit with bullets, cannonballs, crabs, and there was no need for saving. Everything they looted, they immediately spent on provisions, on women, on repairing ships. Therefore, pirates didn't reserve their gold for the next year in case of a global food crisis. No, they never even heard of it. The YOLO way of life, that's what piracy is, not deposits or economics. So what? The treasures don't really exist, right? Are those old fairy tales for snotty kids? Not really. The adventurous spirit is still with us, which is why treasures do exist in real life. This is Forrest Fenn, and he doesn't look like a pirate at all. No hat, no parrot. He's an art dealer. At the age of 80, he published a book announcing that he had hidden a treasure worth more than $1 million in the Rocky Mountains. He left 9 clues encrypted in the poem for all treasure hunters. I won't read it out. You can pause the video and enjoy the rhyme yourself. Anyway, these lines contain references to places like the warm waters and home of Brown. There's also a personal appeal to treasure hunters. Everything is in the finest tradition of old novels. We are not spoiled with treasures at all. I mean, only in Uncharted or maybe in Lara Croft we might find a treasure chest. But in real life, who would have expected, who could believe the old man and go looking for some mysterious chest in the mountains? Would you go there? Definitely not. Still, how many people do you think were actually involved in the search? A little hint. 4 of them died. Yep. Thousands of people were searching for that treasure just in our time, yeah. What a fuss Grandpa made with his poem. The chest and the dead men, it's all present. After 10 years of searching, in the summer of 2020, Fenn claimed that his treasure had been found. The challenging quest was completed by a 32-year-old medical student. The lucky man got gold nuggets the size of a chicken's egg, ancient coins, and 16th century jewelry. Rubies, sapphires, and a Ming Dynasty jade statuette. Fenn died 3 months after discovering the treasure. It was as if he had finished the main task of his life that kept him alive. What's next? Do we have anything else to search for on this planet? You'd be surprised how many more treasures are still on the map and how many people are looking for them. I will tell you about adventurers, fraudsters, and, of course, scientists who devote decades, and sometimes even their lives in search of the big jackpot. Now you'll learn how much gold is waiting for you in the ocean, who is the most successful treasure hunter in the world, why the Black Sea is the biggest jar of pickles, how a bone can be more valuable than gold, where the Ark of the Covenant is located, how stolen Indian gold got its revenge on the Spanish, why you don't have to give part of your treasure to the state, why physicists looted a sunken ship, and what treasures are better never to be taken out of the water. 1,000 devils! Shh, shh, woo. I'm a little cringe, yes, but I am free. So stay home and be bored. Oh, don't be bored. Now, we all know that pirates weren't in the habit of burying gold. An average pirate looted it, buried it, looted it, buried it. No, that wasn't the case. 2 to 3 pirates who have buried something might exist. But in general, the pirate gold myth is completely overblown to enormous heights. But I'll tell you where lots of gold is. In the ocean. And not just on the bottom, but in the water itself. Yeah, you might not know, but scientists estimate that there are 20 million tons of gold dissolved in the world's oceans. Its value is estimated to be about $1,184 trillion. So the real treasure map looks like this. That's 100 times more gold than has been dug up in the entire history, though a concentration of about 1 gram per 100 million tons of water is that little. Not much, yes, indeed, not so much. After all, it is much more productive to look for gold that someone has already mined, turned into ingots, and dropped to the bottom. In fact, according to the most conservative calculations of UNESCO, there should be about 3 million sunken ships right now. From the oldest 10,000-year-old boat to the Titanic and modern container ships, it's so much that during the search for the missing Malaysia Airlines plane, the rescuers accidentally discovered the remains of 2 19th-century British ships while bluntly scanning the seabed. Those ships were carrying not gold, but coal. The amount of gold the other ships took to the bottom over history is estimated at $60 billion. That's a lot. So what? Did we find them all? No, we've discovered less than 1% of the shipwrecks. So, the treasure hunters and adventurers have many years of searching ahead. Welcome, you may get up and start right away. Unfortunately, not all ships that are found have treasure inside. More commonly, they're found on Spanish galleons. Here, it's important to do a quick flashback in order to understand why Spanish and what a galleon is. In the 16th century, the Spanish introduced the Inca Empire to the world and were just freaked out by its wealth. The Incas managed to fill a large room over 8 feet high with gold and filled 2 more rooms with silver in order to rescue only one of their chiefs from the Spanish. Actually, that chieftain was killed anyway, and the invaders snatched away much more treasure. Spain had to create a separate fleet to carry the booty from America to Europe twice a year on such multi-deck ships, galleons. They had a large hold and more than 60 cannons to protect the valuable cargo. They carried over 181 tons of gold and 16,000 tons of silver. During the sailing, they met hurricanes and sometimes the Brits, so some of the ships sank. But how do we know where the cargo sailed to? At this point, the Spanish bureaucrats, who very clearly kept a log of shipments, come to the rescue. In fact, not a log, but 3 logs at once. Therefore, we have an approximate understanding of which ship and how much gold sank. But there is a problem. No one knows where it happened. There is an approximate area, but what's at the bottom is unclear. After all, there's a relief map for only 1/5 of the seafloor. Look, the light areas represent the explored bottom, while the dark areas are unexplored yet. Consider the scale. In order to see anything there, people use remote-controlled submersibles, as well as magnetometers. They sense the slightest change in the magnetic field when something metallic is found on its way. And, of course, the lidars and sonars probe everything around them with waves of light and sound. But why can't we find all the treasures at once and get rich? Here's why. Even with gadgets like sonars, lidars, and other high-tech stuff, they'll still have to search over a huge area. That's hundreds of square miles in order to find anything resembling treasure. Imagine a needle in a haystack that's broken into many pieces, and then also covered with sand, rocks, algae, and other critters. And this needle, chip, has to be found with devices that search very slowly. Next, even if we find this treasure, it then has to be dug out and brought up somehow. The valuables from the sunken ship near Turkey, which we'll mention a bit later, were extracted for 10 years. They used powerful pumps to remove the sand, inflated balloons underwater, and even set up a phone booth at the bottom to communicate with the surface. The entire operation required more than 22,000 dives, even though it was only 50 yards deep. So finding and lifting the treasure can cost more than the treasure itself. Therefore, it's almost impossible to search for artifacts alone. Frankly speaking, definitely impossible. And so this would be where greedy companies come into play. And this is the first type of treasure hunters. This is the website of Odyssey Marine Exploration. It says they're looking for mineral deposits at the bottom of the ocean. Here are the happy faces of their employees. Ha 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 ha. But that's the cover. And while no one is watching, they're all becoming shipwreck raiders. So it's no longer ha 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 ha, but yo ho 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 ho. Once, they found such ingots as big as a loaf of bread,
You know what it was?
and even talked about it on TED. Yeah, these guys don't play the noble. One day of searching at sea may cost $125,000. So they often pocket the treasure and recoup the cost. Which begs the question, can I keep any valuables I find, or what? Not really. Nowadays, if treasure is found in the ocean, it's more like the show Law and Order than Pirates of the Caribbean. The Spanish frigate Nuestra Señora de las Mercedes sank during a battle near Portugal in 1804. It took 17 tons of gold and silver coins to the bottom, and 200 years later, the American company Odyssey, during the operation with codename Black Swan, raised some valuable cargo in the same area and immediately took the treasure for itself. Suspicious. Spain also wondered whose ship has just been robbed. Peru examined the coins and recognized the coinage from the time. Peru was a part of the Spanish Empire, so they filed a claim too, saying it was their treasure. Get it? Already 3 countries are claiming the find. Who was right? Spain. It invoked the right of sovereign immunity. It says that a warship registered in one country cannot be claimed by other countries and cannot be sued for it. Even if 200 years have passed or 300 and it's become a ghetto for crabs, it's still our ship and that's it. The American court ordered the American company Odyssey to return all the treasures to Spain, which owned the shipwreck. The Spanish didn't melt it down or put it in the treasury, they just exhibited it in a museum. That's it. No one is above the law, but are there any general rules for enthusiastic treasure hunters? Yes, there are, and it says if you find treasure at sea, you are obliged to declare it publicly so that the real owner can be found. But if you don't do that, the court may consider it a dirty play of some sort and seize all the fines. But there are those who, in general, just don't give a damn about the law, so to speak. Let's call them adventurers. And this is the second type of treasure hunters. The adventurers. The most successful of them all was probably engineer Tommy Thompson. At first, he designed a system to retrieve data from sunken Soviet submarines. But then, apparently, he realized that it wasn't enough to make any money. Tommy found more than 160 investors, personally engineered the Nemo underwater robot, and managed to use it to get to the largest sunken treasure in the United States, the SS Central America ship. Then, he scammed everyone and escaped with some of the loot. The federal marshals announced a large-scale manhunt for him and his girlfriend. Now Tommy Thompson's beard has turned white, and he himself looks worse since he spent the last 7 years behind bars. All these years, imagine, the authorities have been persuading him to confess where this son of a bitch hid the treasure. But Tommy says he can't remember. He forgot. That's how bad his memory is. Tommy, hang in there. He gets a $1,000 fine for every day he stays silent, and he already owes the state $2 million. And the investors are sure he stashed the profits from the treasure sales for his children. And he lies about his memory. We totally agree with them. But enough milling the water. Check out this link. But what about that treasure on land that I promised at the beginning of the video? Let's go. Yeah, here we go. They exist, a lot of them. But where can these treasures be hidden? Everywhere. All over Eurasia, from the Black Sea to Siberia, every spot is a mound. Hello, everyone who lives near them. Mounds are burial sites, and they look like this one. They were created by nomads, the Scythians and the Sarmatians. They didn't have permanent houses. They couldn't even write. But they had exquisite jewelry made of gold. Gold was buried in mounds with the dead, just like the tomb of Tutankhamun. So hundreds of years later, they were massively looted and even destroyed with bulldozers. Is there anything less savage without being vandals? Yes, there is. Ancient people had a tradition to hide the most valuable things until better times at the onset of great upheavals. And then, not to survive up to these better times. Be born, suffer, die, and go to heaven. Such stashes were made before the invasion of the Golden Horde. They can be excavated on the site of former settlements of that era, as one serf did. He plowed the land on the site of the ruined cathedral and stumbled upon the most valuable Russian treasure, Ryazan Barmas. Such royal jewels were found there. He handed them over to the state with a bonus of 10,000 rubles. He redeemed himself and his family to freedom. Though more recent and less luxurious treasures may be found just in old houses under the floor, in attics, and chimneys. Sometimes there's a chance to find valuables from the previous owners even in a shabby apartment building, behind door jambs, baseboards, and under windowsills. But if you want to find something truly legendary, not just your grandmother's silver, then you have to explore the sites of historical events, or even biblical events. Wikipedia provides an impressive list of lost treasures. It seems like you can choose any item and go look for it. Yet, there are no proofs of their existence for many of them. Let's organize the legends. Let's start with the religious artifacts. According to the descriptions, they looked something like this. Here's 1, 2, here's 3. They're the most obscure ones. After all, most of the main events in the religious books happened about 2,000 years ago, or even much earlier. The trail, considering the time, is not just no longer hot, it's iced over. For example, the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the tablets of stone and which killed all the villains in Indiana Jones. The Bible gives detailed instructions on how to assemble it, as easy as an IKEA. Assemble it correctly and the channel of communications with God will open right here between the wings. If this artifact had a real prototype, then its wooden base surely would have fallen apart in 3,000 years, and the gold parts might have been stolen by the Babylonians or anyone else. But the Ethiopian Orthodox Church claims that the Ark is intact, unharmed, and hidden right here in the Church of St. Mary of Zion in the city of Axum. Certainly, only one monk has access to the relic. Turns out the whole world is wondering, where's the treasure? Spielberg even directed Indiana Jones, and the Ark turns out to be here at the known coordinates. Yes. But of course, no one will let you verify this fact. And you, in the best traditions of Christianity, have no choice but to believe. It's much more realistic to find values from another group. I would call them the treasures of states and governors. Many of them, by the way, have disappeared recently, and archives and diaries of eyewitnesses have survived. The most popular story, overgrown with legends, is probably this one. Nazi gold. This is not a myth. For the war, the Germans needed to buy tungsten for shells from Portugal, high-quality oil from Romania, and chromium from Turkey. But these countries didn't accept German currency. The Germans carried out all gold reserves from the occupied countries and paid for the goods with gold. In 1945, the Americans stumbled upon the remains of this loot. Gold worth $4 billion at today's rate was hidden in the old mine. Here's the future president of the United States, Eisenhower, personally inspecting the find before returning it to the affected countries. But there must be more gold. At least $5 billion. Where is it? $5 billion. And that's the right question. Right now it's being searched for in various areas. We regularly receive news from Poland saying that they're about to dig up the little engine that could not. A train with German gold that didn't make it to the town of Wojcik and disappeared somewhere in the secret tunnels. But except for the stories of eyewitnesses, there are no proofs. Therefore, the bottom of the Australian lake Toplitzi seems to be a more likely location because the Germans had once hidden a treasure there in the form of fake pounds sterling, with which they wanted to flood Britain. But checking the bottom covered with roots is difficult. 5 divers have already died. Nowadays, searchers rely on the diary of a German officer with 11 storage locations. Among them is a blown-up well near the Polish palace. Its owner has already given the green light for the search. Yes, the legend of gold is resilient, well, just like gold itself, in the sense that it's practically inert. That is, it doesn't react in any way with nature, and doesn't deteriorate in even a million years. It can be dissolved only in aqua regia, a mixture of nitric and hydrochloric acid, and even after that, the gold can be recovered. Gold is indestructible, but there are many missing treasures without even a single gram of gold. These are cultural values. That is, things that are valuable to our culture, history, and science. And such things may be made from steel, from canvas, parchment, or wood. Of course, they endure the test of time much worse. So the stolen portrait of the young man by Raphael, the sword Hanjo made by master Masamune, which is considered the most sophisticated blade, by the way, and the lost play of Shakespeare must have lost its original appearance or even been destroyed. Unless they have settled in some collection and have been provided with a special microclimate, as it was done for the United States National Treasure. The Declaration of Independence. They pumped the inert gas argon into the sealed box with the document instead of destructive air. Also, it's important to maintain an optimal humidity of 40%, which prevents the paper from deteriorating in any way. Such national treasures might not even have a physical body. I'm talking about technologies, ancient mighty technologies that weren't even allowed to be written down in order to avoid leaks. Such ancient secrets. Consequently, it was quite easy to lose them. The Byzantines poured a combustible mixture called Greek fire on enemy ships from sprinklers like the one in the Rammstein concert. The fire stuck to the skin and was impossible to put out with water, almost like the wildfire in Game of Thrones. It was a nuclear weapon by 7th century standards, and the recipe was known to only a few people. So was the formula for Damascus steel. Swords made of it could cut a handkerchief in flight and bend 90 degrees, regaining their shape afterward. Scientists found carbon nanotubes in the still intact blades. How did they get there? I have absolutely no idea. Scientists are trying to restore the exact technology, but they don't succeed, since the secrets of these technologies have gone to the grave along with the carriers. It turns out that in order to preserve the cultural value, you need some kind of organic material which would lie in the dirt for thousands of years and not deteriorate. Yep, it's the skull of a distant ancestor of Homo sapiens. Peking man, or Sinanthropus, 200 bones of this primate were found in a Chinese cave, and they're a very important link to the Asian branch of evolution. So important that China even declared the Sinanthropus the first humans to light up the earth with fire, and their society primitive communism. What you see on the screen is just a copy of the real skull. After all, the original, along with the other bones, vanished without a trace when it was evacuated to the States during World War II. But we have a hint. A soldier who served at the place of their shipment told his son that at some point, he dug up a box of bones, got scared, and reburied them some other place. Father put the cross on the map here. The problem is that there's now a huge parking lot, and you have to break and dig all over the place to find the chest with the dead man. Anyway, meet me here in a month. I'll get the pickaxe, you get the shovel, and here we go. Joking aside, only a third type of hunter has the right to search for such treasures. And you know them well, they're archaeologists. They're focused not on the market value of the artifact, but on its background, its history. And if you think that historical value is some kind of bullshit, and it is only of interest to the old men in universities, and it's not monetized in any way, this historical value, then remember this example. The flagship, Her Majesty's Victory. The Odyssey Company, yes, again, those fellows found 4 tons of gold coins among its wreckage. Listen how happy they are about their find. It was estimated that if the gold was foolishly melted down and sold at market price, it would fetch $160 million. That's a lot, but if you don't melt them down and sell them with historical value, then the value of those same coins skyrockets to $1 billion. Merely because it's not random gold from a pawn shop or from a store. No, this is the same gold that was minted in the 18th century that went to the bottom along with thousands of sailors. It was preserved there. And then it was found and lifted up. That's the historical value, okay? Every sunken ship is a sealed time capsule, like a mosquito stuck in amber or Pompeii solidified in ashes. The water column protects the artifacts from marauders and the destructive effects of the air and nature. For example, this thing from an antique ship. It looks like a rusty valve, but if you scrape and X-ray, it turns out to be the famous Antikythera mechanism. It's the oldest analog computer that could calculate the trajectories of celestial bodies 100 years BC. It had no less than 30 gears, and they showed phases of the moon, the position of the planets, and even predicted an eclipse. If it wasn't for the shipwreck, we would never have had such evidence of advanced technology in antiquity. But it is special luck to find a merchant ship, because it keeps loads of different valuables in one place, which can hardly be found in one place on land. The discovery of a ship near Uluburun, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video, has excited all archaeologists. After all, it sank 1,300 years before the birth of Christ. Among its wreckage, we found the things that were most valued at that time: ebony, elephant tusks, hippo teeth, ostrich egg vases, copper ingots, colored glass, beads of Baltic amber, and even turtle shells to make musical instruments. Indeed, these are the treasures of 7 different cultures, a cast of an entire era. Imagine a catalog of eBay goods from the Bronze Age, when people didn't yet know how to forge iron. But getting them up onto the surface for the examination can be a problem. Yes, underwater archaeologists have many underwater pitfalls. That was the pun of the video. Woohoo. Let's go. When things made of metal, such as a cannon, lie in seawater for centuries, the salt dissolved in it literally soaks into the metal. And if you make that cannon out of the sea and just dry it out, the salt will regain its normal shape, become crystals, and destroy the metal from the inside. And things made of organics, such as wood or fabric, are completely eaten by bacteria in water. Some bacteria living in water even eat metal. So there may be nothing left of the Titanic by 2030. Yes, there is really such a prediction. There's only one place on the planet where the time for artifacts is completely frozen. It's the Black Sea. Usually, the layers of water in the seas are mixed, supplying oxygen from the surface to the bottom. But it's not the case with the Black Sea. Light fresh water from rivers flows into it and stays on top, while the salt water remains at the bottom. There's no mixing, and the voracious oxygen-breathing bacteria do not survive there. Hence, the Black Sea is nicknamed the biggest jar of pickles, in the sense that it preserves everything at its bottom, just as brine does. It explains why the oldest whole ship was found exactly in the Black Sea at a depth of 2 kilometers. Before that, ships of this type had only been seen in one place, on an ancient vase with Odysseus and the Sirens, and here it is in perfect condition. But even its woods fall apart when taken to the surface. So what'd the archaeologists do? They found the most harmless way to store the artifacts: to leave them where they lay, that is, at the bottom. In order to study the ship and all its contents, scientists turn it into an exact 3D model by combining thousands of photos. This technique is called photogrammetry. It's even possible to recreate a disaster, and to touch the artifacts, archaeologists dive to them personally. Nowadays, there are special underwater museums for ancient treasures, where even the ship itself is treated as an exhibit. Only our attitude makes something a treasure, even if it's a pile of old rotten boards. Nothing in the world is unconditionally valuable. Any value is created by us, humans. There is an example of a treasure that didn't just fill someone's pockets or become part of a museum exhibit, but played a very important role. A very important role in understanding the structure of the universe. Yeah, and that's the story I like best. Listen to it. In 2010, the Italian National Institute of Nuclear Physics took 120 ingots of lead from a sunken Roman ship to build the neutrino detector. Why do physicists need such antiquities? Because over 2,000 years of chilling at the bottom, these ingots have completely lost their radioactivity, unlike freshly mined lead, which radiates and would interfere with the super-sensitive detector. Guess the most ironic thing. Archaeologists think our ancestors wanted to use this lead to make weapons. But 1,000 years later, this lead became a shield. Scientists have made a screen that protects against external radiation. For some people, lead is priceless too. Our planet is literally packed with various treasures. From the skeletons of giant creatures to the terracotta army and sunken cities in Egypt. In fact, gold is only the smallest and most useless part of them. After the Spanish brought tons of Indian treasure in the 16th century, they were finally able to sponsor all their wars and pay all their debts. While rejoicing at the free money, they stopped sponsoring their own manufacturing. And in addition, the massive influx of gold caused severe inflation in the country. Gold only harmed the Spanish, and not because it was cursed by the Incas, but because no treasure will save you from your problems if you can't manage it properly. At this point, it should be said that no treasure is more valuable than your friendship, or no treasure is more valuable than your child's first words. Yes, sort of, but that's bullshit. Let's be brutally honest. No treasure is more valuable than those two. The first one is the most gold-stuffed galleon, San Jose. The treasure is estimated at $17 billion, and its location has already been discovered off the coast of Colombia. All that remains is to scour the seabed and collect the loot. And the second treasure is in underground caves near Helsinki. For decades, there's been a search for the ancient temple, where a generation of pagans collected at least 50,000 precious stones, and the whole bounty is worth $20 billion. Currently, the diggers claim that they're only a few feet from the entrance of the temple. High time to go there. But you have to choose what kind of hunters you are, like this, like that, or like that. But whatever it is, you might need brains. So as always, pump your brains. Bye.